Yeah, so hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Sam, and I farm up here with my wife Claire and two children. Um, I've been asked to talk to you today about farming in a protected landscape and about how, and I'll talk about our farm first, and I'll talk about how and why we changed our management, and then some of the key opportunities and challenges that we faced along the way. So this is our farm, as you can see, it's right next to Ullswater, the lake, which is designated as a triple SI. And we've got a mixture of habitats from kind of a heather moorland on the top fell through some kind of rough grazing and wood pasture areas in the middle of the farm, and then down to kind of traditional species rich hay meadows lower down by the lake. We moved up to Claire's family farm. So Claire's granddad bought the farm in the 1970s, and he farmed there until he died in the sort of late 90s. After that, it was grass let to other farmers in the valley, and it was quite intensively farmed. There was quite a lot of fertilizer being spread, quite a lot of silage being cut. And when we moved back, we really struggled to work out what we were going to do, because economically the farm was struggling. We could see the basic payment scheme payments were being reduced, and the sheep enterprise was not very profitable. So we took a really big step back and looked at the history of the farm to try and work out whether there was a way that we could manage the land that was more resilient. And I found this map from 1690, which shows Gowbarrow Park, which was a deer park, which included our farm and also some of the surrounding fells. And the kind of sketch drawing there shows, a different looking landscape with more trees. And the more I read about wood pasture, the more I thought that maybe that actually is a more resilient landscape, but also a landscape that's much better for biodiversity, particularly if you've got it next to areas of wetland. We've already heard about newts and the value of wetland in our landscape. So we were trying to work out how we could transition our farm away from that kind of short grass to perhaps more trees, longer grass, a wetter landscape, but also try and maintain a profitable farm enterprise. So we started speaking to somebody called Caroline Grindrod from a community interest company called Wilderculture, and she really helped us to try and formulate a plan. And the plan, well, the way that we're managing the farm now, we call it Wilder Gowbarrow, because we're encouraging more wildlife. And so Caroline started encouraging me to look at the soil in much more detail. And when I started doing that, I started seeing that our soil was in real trouble, actually. So the slide on the left shows a soil pit that I dug in the middle of one of our supposedly better fields. So this is a field that's been cut for silage or hay pretty much every year for 30 years. And the soil was very, very compacted. The grasses were yellowing. There were only 2 or 3 species of plants per square meter. And the roots, the key thing is, the root depth is very, very short. And so you can kind of see that if there was a heavy rain event and it hit that type of soil, it would run off quite quickly into the lake, which is not ideal. So on the same day, I dug a soil pit at the edge of the field. So this was next to a hedgerow. And this area had not been cut. It had not been touched with chemicals or driven on by a tractor for, well, I don't know, hundreds of years maybe. And the soil, the quality of the soil was just completely different. The diversity of plants was higher, and the root depth much better. And so what we tried to do now is to try and push our soils to become more like the stuff on the right there. And so we've sold all the sheep. That was one of the first things that we did, and we've grown the cattle numbers. So we're up to about 65 head of cattle during the summertime, and we start letting the grass grow a lot longer. And by letting it grow a lot longer, the roots are getting a lot deeper, and we're getting a much healthier soil. And as a result, our produce is getting better at the same time. So we're Pasture for Life certified with the beef enterprise, which means that we don't use any grains to finish our cattle whatsoever. They only eat pasture or grasses that we grow on the farm. And there's more and more research that shows that Pasture for Life farms are not only better for the environment, but the meat that's produced is a higher nutritional content, and it's got a much better balance of omega-3s and things like that that are really healthy for us to eat, as well as healthier for the animals and healthier for the soil and the entire ecosystem. So yeah, for more information on that, go and look at the Pasture for Life website. And these are some really positive signs on the soil and the changes in the soil. So again, on the left, I've got a slab of clay soil that I dug out of a field in 2019, and you can see it's a similar picture. It's a very blocky looking soil. I did an infiltration rate test, which is a measure of how quickly water filters down into the soil to see how effective that soil is at storing water. And it took more than 5 minutes for a litre of water to get into that soil. And I repeated that test last year in exactly the same place, and it only took 14 seconds. So there are some really good signs that what we're doing is helping, and we're getting those deeper rooted plants, we're getting more aggregated soil as a result. And so I want to just come on, probably, one of the most important things I need to talk about is the opportunities and the challenges that we face when when farming in a protected landscape. So first of all, the opportunities that we have, it's a beautiful place. So we're lucky that we can walk outside and take a photograph, and if you share that on social media, you get engagement, and so that definitely helps. There are stewardship opportunities. Countryside stewardship in England is a really good thing that is open to all farmers, but if you're in a protected landscape, you're probably more likely to be able to get into higher level stewardship. And we do have there's a lot of people that are interested in what we're doing, and so we do get volunteers that come and help. For example, we planted a hedge last winter, and we had 18 people that came out in the wind and rain and helped us to plant that. Whereas I think if we were farming next to the M1 motorway, they're probably not going to be as keen to do that. So, but of course there are challenges, and I think the biggest is actually just having access to land to make that sort of decision. I think a lot of farms are managed in a way that is not ideal and doesn't lend itself to nature at all. And so if there are ways that we can open up access to young people to perhaps start a new business that's more nature friendly, then that would be really helpful. There is this slight obsession with tidiness, I think, in farming, and that is particularly keenly felt in our area in the Lake District, where there's obviously a lot of pride in the appearance of land, and in many ways, letting grass grow long and not spreading and not spraying weeds or trying not to cut weeds down creates a landscape that doesn't look as neat and tidy as a kind of neatly clipped sheep grazed field. Our climate perhaps isn't as friendly as some of the other areas of Britain, although that I think there's a double-edged sword there, because in the summertime a lot of people down south were struggling with drought, whereas we were actually okay because we still had rainfall. Some of our topography isn't ideal, it's very steep and difficult terrain. But actually, I think the most critical things are the social side. I think there's a fear of the unknown. Farmers are afraid to perhaps make changes, and there aren't many people that are doing it. So there's no support. There's no one really to talk to about it. So yeah, these are just a few of my ideas, really, and it's not a complete list by any means, but I hope it sort of gets people perhaps thinking about the things that affect farmers and the decisions they make. And lastly, I just want to show a bit of hope, because there is a lot of hope. We've seen an explosion of orchids and other wildflowers with incredible names like Devil's Bit scabious, Grass of Parnassus. I didn't even know these names. Do you know what I mean? I've had to learn this, and I think that this is the key to getting farmers to change, is actually to just get them excited about soil and about some of these amazing old wildflowers and stuff that we have. And if we can get them to see that, then perhaps we can get more people to make a change. So yeah, thank you. That was it, actually. So yeah, hopefully I've covered the 3 points.